In 1986, a Japanese diver named Kihachiro Aratake was searching for hammerhead sharks off the coast of Yonaguni Island, the most remote island in Japan, closer to Taiwan than to Tokyo. He never found the sharks. What he found instead would divide the scientific community for the next 4 decades. 90 feet below the surface, in complete darkness, he came face to face with something that should not exist. Perfectly carved stone steps, right angles, flat terraces, corridors. A structure so large it would take you 10 minutes just to swim around it. And nobody, not a single scientist, geologist, or historian, has been able to fully explain what it is. This is the story of Yonaguni. But it's also something much bigger, because Yonaguni is not alone. The Yonaguni monument sits at the southwestern tip of the island, submerged between 5 and 40 meters deep. It spans over 150 meters in length and 40 meters in height, taller than a 10-story building. When researchers first dove to document it, they found features that stopped them cold. Perfectly flat surfaces, steps rising in uniform increments, a triangular formation that looks like a pyramid, a feature locals call the turtle, a carved stone shape that could only be intentional. And then there's the twin megaliths, 2 massive upright stones standing side by side on a flat platform, like gateposts to a forgotten city. Professor Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus spent 15 years diving Yonaguni. 15 years. And his conclusion was clear. This is man-made. He identified what he believes are roads, castles, monuments, and even a stadium-like structure. But here's where it gets dark. If Kimura is right, and the structure is artificial, then it was built at least 10,000 years ago. Because that's when this area was last above sea level. 10,000 years ago, the accepted history of human civilization was barely beginning. We were supposed to be living in caves. Here's the detail that silences even the skeptics. Every year on the morning of the summer solstice, June 21st, the sun rises at a precise angle over the Pacific Ocean, and that single beam of light travels 90 feet underwater and hits the exact apex of the Yonaguni structure. Natural rock formations don't align with astronomical events. That requires planning. That requires knowledge of the sun's movement across the sky. That requires a civilization advanced enough to calculate it. But this is where the story becomes truly unsettling. Because Yonaguni is not the only ancient structure with impossible astronomical alignments. Stonehenge in England aligns with the summer solstice sunrise. The Great Pyramid of Giza aligns with the stars of Orion's belt. The Pyramid of Chichen Itza in Mexico creates a serpent shadow on the equinox. And Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the oldest known temple on Earth at 12,000 years old, aligns with the star Sirius. These structures are separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. So why do they all speak the same astronomical language? At the end of the last ice age, approximately 12,000 years ago, something catastrophic happened. The ice caps melted. Sea levels rose by over 120 meters worldwide. Millions of square kilometers of land where people lived, disappeared forever beneath the ocean. We call this the Younger Dryas event. And in geological terms, it happened almost overnight. Now here's what nobody talks about in history class. Before this flood, there was more habitable land on Earth than there is today. Entire continental shelves, now underwater, were dry land. The Persian Gulf was a river valley. The North Sea was a forest. The area between Japan and Taiwan, where Yonaguni sits, was a vast coastal plain. If a civilization existed on this land, it is now buried under the ocean, and we have barely scratched the surface of what lies down there. Graham Hancock, the controversial researcher who has dedicated his life to this theory, calls it the lost civilization hypothesis. He argues that an advanced culture existed before the flood, one capable of mathematics, astronomy, and monumental architecture, and was almost completely wiped out. Almost. Because some of them survived. And they carried their knowledge to Egypt, to Mesopotamia, to Mexico, to Japan. That's why the pyramids keep appearing on every continent. That's why the flood myth exists in over 200 separate cultures worldwide. That's why Yonaguni exists. If Yonaguni is real, then where are the others? The answer is, we've already found them. We just don't talk about them. Off the coast of Cuba, in 2001, a team of researchers using sonar equipment discovered a grid of geometric stone structures on the ocean floor, 700 meters below the surface, perfectly aligned, some over 400 meters long. The Cuban government investigated briefly, then went silent. In India, off the coast of Dwarka in the Gulf of Kambat, divers found an entire submerged city in 2002. Stone walls, grids of streets, artifacts, including a piece of wood that was carbon dated to 9,500 years ago. The Indian government called it the cradle of civilization. Then funding was cut and the project was quietly abandoned. In the Pacific Ocean, the ruins of Nan Madol, a city built on 92 artificial islands off the coast of Micronesia, still stand today. Its basalt columns weigh up to 50 tons each and were transported from quarries miles away. Archaeologists have no explanation for how a supposedly primitive culture moved them. And beneath the waters of the Mediterranean, off the coast of Greece and Malta, more than a dozen submerged prehistoric structures have been mapped in recent years. All of them predate the accepted timeline of civilization. All of them show evidence of astronomical knowledge. All of them are ignored by mainstream academia. Ask yourself, why? Here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Only 20% of the ocean floor has been mapped with high resolution. The other 80%, an area larger than all the continents combined, is essentially unknown. We know more about the surface of Mars than we know about the bottom of our own ocean. And in that unmapped darkness, if there are hundreds of submerged cities, structures, monuments, we would never know. In 2023, a team of researchers using advanced sonar mapping off the coast of Mexico discovered what appears to be a massive rectangular structure on the ocean floor. Perfectly geometric, over a kilometer long. It was mentioned briefly in a scientific paper. Then silence. The question is not whether a lost civilization existed. The evidence strongly suggests it did. The real question is, why is this not the biggest story in human history? Why every time a submerged structure is found, the funding dries up, the project ends, and the story disappears? I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I'm saying that rewriting human history is inconvenient. It invalidates decades of academic careers. It challenges religious narratives. It forces governments to ask uncomfortable questions about who owns ancient structures under international waters. It's easier to call it a natural rock formation. It's easier to look away. Go back to Yonaguni for a moment. A diver, a remote island, a structure that shouldn't exist. Whether Yonaguni is natural or man-made almost doesn't matter anymore. Because the real revelation is this: we are not the first advanced civilization on this planet. The evidence is there. In the stone alignments, in the flood myths, in the submerged cities, in the astronomical precision of structures built before the pyramids. Something existed before us. Something was lost. And the ocean is keeping its secrets. For now. Because every year the sonar gets better. The submarines go deeper. The mapping improves. And every year something new is found at the bottom of the ocean that rewrites what we thought we knew. Yonaguni was just the beginning. What do you think is down there? Comment below. And if this kind of truth makes you uncomfortable, good. It should. Follow the channel. There are more secrets history tried to bury, and we're just getting started.